anyone review tonight's agenda? No. Quietness is accepted. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the 12th of April 2022. Moved and seconded, please. Councillor Reid and Councillor Jackson, thank you. Any discussion required on those minutes? They can circulated. I shall put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Asking unanimously. Confirmation of the minutes of the special council meeting on the 3rd of May 2022. I'll move for second. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, and I'll take deputy mayor. Thank you. Once again, any discussion required on those minutes as they were circulated? Thank you. I shall put the motion of acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 5.0, I'd ask for move and seconder for the mayor's report. Councillor Nichols and Councillor Reid, thank you. And invite any questions, comments regarding that. Deputy Mayor.
Just your meeting with Tom Gray, read the Donnelly Marina. Are you able to provide some more information and how that's progressing?
It's a very slow trip, that one, but Tom came in to see the general manager and I was quite enthusiastic about some of the fine tuning they've been doing since COVID and looking at the business model and the shape of things without dramatic changes to the footprint or anything like that. And it was encouraging to see that the enthusiasm for it was still there. Is there anything else from your part on that? On the lease or anything?
No, we've provided our documentation to the proponents and to property services, Crown's lands, but the proponents are seeking some legal advice on what we've put in there, but it's been, fortunately, radio silence from the Crown still.
Still the best.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. I remember a few years ago we were dealing with Josh Muscat and Craig Swan regarding an interesting development that they were proposing. Would you be able to elaborate on your meeting with them just recently, please?
Yes, they were getting to the pointy end of their development. There was a few points that had to be tidied up as per the planning permit, as the things that they wanted to finish off on. There was a couple of small amendments that they were working through with our senior planner, Shane Wells, and they just wanted to tidy up and just have a general discussion about where it was. And there was some points about where the road there, where it runs into theirs, that we had to clarify a few points on the ownership and the width of the road. We just worked through them, and Shane was in the room with us working through that as well. So we clarified quite a few different points there, and there's several people that are wishing to buy the units or the homes there, and they were keen to see titles progress as soon as possible, as we all are to see those projects finished.
Good, yeah, making sure we're happy with them. Yeah. Thanks for that. And just on a development point of view, I noticed that they're new developers at Primrose Estate too. Would you provide a quick elaboration on your meeting with those, please?
Yes, for those that were around when that was passed, probably 4 and a bit years ago, 5 years ago, the idea was to have a unit caravan park restaurant development that catered for people cycling or motorbike riding around the state, right up to families, as well as people towing the caravan. And the original developer has sold the property to some people that have a very, very similar concept. And they've been in once again talking very sensibly through Shane Wells to elaborate on the types of cabins they'd like to put there and the design and the look of them to make sure it would fit. And it was only a very early meeting, but they have very similar lines as what the vision was for that property.
Yeah, that's what I was. There's not too many amendments to what we approved. years ago there by the sounds
At
of
this
it.
stage, I dare say a few things might have to be tidied up, but that's up to Shane and how he views what they're trying to do. But to me, it was principally the same, but there may be some minor things that may need to be looked at.
I see. Thank you.
Councillor Trent?
You go.
Go,
Okay.
put your hand up.
You're meeting with the Master Builders Association concerning apprenticeships. Any joy there for prospective traineeships?
Yes, they have a contract. They've been given some money by the state government, as have the Civil Construction Fund, and I should imagine the HIA as well. They have a substantial amount of money to develop packages and mechanisms that will see a lot more people added to the construction industry over the next 5 years. Actually, the construction industry is about 6,500 people in Tasmania, short of where it needs to be by 2025. So they want to partner with the new Jobs TAS, who the CERTA operation answers directly to, and CERTA Jobs Hub, to see how we can develop a mechanism that would see a lot more apprentices and trainees. They've set themselves in the south of the state a total of 80 new apprentices in the next a couple of years, 3 years I think it is. I think that's light, but they always set light goals if you're trying to chase 6,500, when you take the other associations involved in it. So we are looking at having a signed partnership agreement to be able to assist them with some of those packages and the ability to spread the word to get more people into the construction industry. And if you look at it, that most of those peak bodies are very good at operating around the metro areas. They are looking to utilise our expertise in regional employment to try and do that. They already have school programs in place, but that probably needs to be a little bit more direct and give a bit more encouragement to young girls and young males that might want to get into that industry, and they're talking to us about being able to offer taster courses, so we can see which part of the profession they'd like to get into.
Yeah. Is this incorporating TAFE as well, or?
Yes and no. TAFE's still going under an enormous redevelopment, which at the top end, and some of it hasn't reached down into us at Regional Affairs. I had a ministerial forum I went to, was just towards the end there on Friday night. It was largely about how the government needed to restructure TAFE and other RTOs, development programs that will actually do more than just around the centre of Hobart or Launceston, Devonport and Burnie, and reach out. And there was a lot of different facets to it. But my personal feeling is that I think the jobs has now been focused on skills and jobs that we'll see over the next couple of years as TAFE gets fine-tuned a bit more, a lot more focus than what's been available through what they've been working under over the last 10 years or so.
Thank you.
I can live in hope anyway.
Yeah.
Just following on from that, where are we at with the employment hub or building? And what's the time frame for the proposed building out here?
We are waiting for the federal equivalent DPAC to contact us regarding the deeds on the money that was set aside before the election was called, which is basically 1.5. As of last week, there were memos going back and forth between Treasury and Jobs TAS on where that was all at. So they allocate the 1.5 that Premier Gutwin offered us as well if we got the federal funding. We have had a meeting with Jonathan Blood, our architect, to progress the plans and soon to get a bit more confirmation, of course, the construction drawings and everything else. After that, it's mainly presenting the DA and everything else to council. My feeling is we won't get a start before Christmas, or if we do, we'll be very lucky if we do.
It's a little way
No,
down.
I can see without even looking too shaky head, so I wasn't far wrong in what I was saying, so.
Well, it's a little way down the track anyway, so, yeah.
Well,
at
we
least-
start our new contract the 1st of July, so we'll be operating from the various premises or how we have to, which is fine. But there's a fair bit of excitement already. There's other organisations linked to employment and training that are tapping on the door wanting to be part of that development as well.
Thank you.
And a related question, if I may,
Yes,
the
Councillor.
board for the South East Business and Employment, an interim board at the moment, what's the next step?
The next step there is now that Tasman has approved Baby Server, or we've worked through the name, and it looks like being Business and Employment South East Tasmania, which will be best. Logo and everything like that design. We have informally put the interim board in place, and we still have expressions of interest out for several positions, which has not closed yet. And we have to just wait till the incorporation is kicked off, so that we can then, General Manager in his role as Secretary of CERTA can call a meeting of the 4 councils to tick off on the interim board and work through it. Carolyn Pillins has volunteered to take on the chair's role, which I think we're all pretty pleased about because of her level of governance and guidance that is really second to none around the place. And that already over the last 2 to 3 weeks, she's proved just one hell of an asset to making sure we get this done right and correctly. And when you're talking about the amount of money that will be coming through federal and state ranks in, we need to have it correct and done properly, and take it away from having the pressures back onto council and another thing off the side of the desk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last question,
Yes.
if I may, is the meeting with Matt Kenny, with Principal Kenny at Dodgers Ferry.
Yes, it's great. The infamous Matt Kenny, who's obviously down at Denali when the bushfires went through and had a break over at Richmond, has now come home to Dodgers Ferry, and he's talking of staying there for quite a few years, which is great for the school. He's well liked and loved by, I think, parents, students and everybody else involved. It was largely around touching base on the growth of the school, which is continuing at quite a high rate, and where the education department is in looking at new buildings, and they've got some terrapins to go in for this year, and we're going to wait for for another couple of weeks until the federal election is out of the way and politicians have their minds back on local events, and we'll start to ramp up the efforts to talk to the right people about some CapEx money going in from the state government to get it right down there, including a overall site plan that I have spoken to the General Manager. I need to include the oval and part of the rec area there because of the interaction between the council owned land, O'Brien's, and the education department, as well as the foreshore and what the school has an involvement with all that area there. And we're both on the same page pretty well with that. So one of those enjoyable meetings with somebody of the same sort of vision. If there's nothing else in my report, I'll put that for acceptance. All those in favour? Unanimously. Thank you. Supplementary item 6.0, we do have an item that will be in the agenda as 12.1. I have a move from sector, thank you, to accept that in. Councillor Tronius, thank you, and Councillor Reid. And I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. Workshop reports are listed there. Departmental reports. Just have a mover and second of things for these to be tabled. Councillor Nichols and Councillor Jackson, thank you, and invite questions or comments to General Manager and staff here tonight, please. Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, Russell, are you able to give a bit of an update where we're at with the Oriental Rivulet Bridge? So that it's meant in June. Is that still on track?
So through Mayor, at this stage, they're still going to meet their construction period. There's some geotech that we thought was going to have to be done on both the abutments, which I think the people that have won the contract are organising for us, and then you've got the precasting of the bridge, which will be off-site before they move on to site to actually start the work. So at the moment, what have they promised us? 14 weeks out. They're holding the construction program today.
Okay. And in the new design, that is widening the pedestrian crossing bit of it.
The pedestrian crossing is part of the bridge, yeah.
And the other question was in regards to the sports stadium. I just read there that Voss has basically left the site waiting on decision regarding structural issues and proposed remedies.
Yep.
Are you allowed to share what that is?
Yeah.
Or-
So
and is that going to delay the opening?
don't know. Can't tell you, but there's the structural engineers have to provide us a Form 55 to get occupancy to the building surveyors. At this stage, they're not prepared to provide that because they think some work needs to be done. And Voss are basically trying to work through that. And we've got an independent superintendent that's also got some responsibilities in that field as well. So it's to do with the brickwork on three sides of the building, and it's mainly to do with earthquake loading. But at this stage, the structural engineers aren't happy with the tie-off between the steelwork and the brickwork at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
Just back onto the bridge again. I guess because of how and why it happened, it's very sensible to take a bit more time to make sure that geo testing is right.
Yeah. But we're running that in parallel with the design process, so we're hoping that it's not going to extend the construction period. In other words, if they've done the design for the bridge and they're wanting to shore up the assumptions they've made for the foundations on both the abutments is correct. That's basically the process they're going through. And we will get Jacobs is supervising it from a design perspective from us, so we'll want their sign off on that geotech investigation as well.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Reid, you had a question?
Yes, I'm just finding my place. Bear with me. On page 20, the water quality analysis and new signage, that's new everywhere, is it? Do you know? Just towards the top of page 20. Public Health Act. Yeah, here we go. So what it says is recreational water quality analysis and reporting will be done. New signage to be installed at all water quality monitoring sites throughout the Sorell area. That means they'll all be replaced all at once.
Yeah.
So that, because I know we've got a real mixed bag of
Signage.
some quite antique
Yep.
signage.
Yep.
So they'll be all up to date and current messages.
There'll be a program rolling them out. I don't suppose they'll all be
Yeah,
done on the same
yeah.
day, but they'll be done as one program, I
Yeah.
imagine, yeah.
That's good.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. That's good to hear. And if I may, back on page 18, the Paulina Road, it mentions 37 Paulina Road, development stage 2 and 3. Am I correct in thinking that was one of the permit conditions was around tanks for stormwater mediation? Or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what we refer to as the Lynch subdivision,
Yes.
that certainly had a requirement for tanks.
So now that there's some houses going up, that's starting to happen as far as.
Well, yeah, they will do, and if, I'm not sure how far away they are from being completed, but yeah, it's a requirement of that permit and
Okay,
possibly the 55 lots next door.
I think so, yeah, I think they've both got them both, yeah. The Roberts
Yeah.
Sands one.
both of those, okay, thank you very much.
Councillor
A
Prentice.
bit of a random question, and I don't know whether Russell or the General Manager, and it's on behalf of a resident. Does council have an obligation to do anything about groundwater issues? No, not at all.
That's through me, I mean, the quick answer is no. There'd have to be a really obvious, demonstrable discharge from like a piped or concentrated source into it and then directly into a property for us to do anything. But general groundwater,
We're not responsible for. In the same way as we're not responsible for overland flow as long as we don't concentrate it in the same basis.
And because we've inherited a lot of the new subdivisions that have been built on water courses, so we still don't have any responsibility. Oh, it's a difficult one, I know.
I think it depends on the knowledge that council had when the decision was made, Councillor Torrini.
Right.
So if we didn't know there was issues associated with it, with the data that we had, then we've probably got an out clause. If we did know about it and then we consciously went and did something, then there may be some legal ramifications.
I'm talking about subdivisions way back.
Yeah,
So
no, I doubt
wouldn't have had the information.
Wouldn't have had the information now. That doesn't keep a lot of our residents very happy and ratepayers, but that is in fact what it will come down to.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions on the departmental reports, I'll put them for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 9.1 is the information on the replacement of the steps at Red Oak. Can I have a mover and second? Thank you. Councillor Nichols, I thought might have been quick on that. And Councillor Reid flinched as well, so thank you.
do you want us to look for it?
Self-explanatory really, that we've still got a bit to work through and still are.
Sorry, what page are we up to?
43.
Did you say 43?
That's the petitions. Yes. Thank you.
So any other comment required on this?
Only that just recently, it's been brought to my attention that work that was done several years ago, Conley's Marsh, beach access as part of after the bushfires, might be worth investigating as people that were involved in that project think that there's a lot of similarities with this. So that would be fairly inexpensive if that was the case. So worth a look.
We are going to discuss that at a workshop, aren't we? Was as far as budgets concerned, because there's quite a big difference there in the two remedies.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, there's still a lot of work to be done on that, on location and how it can work and where it goes, so there's a bit more to go. This is more about getting it on the agenda and getting it so that it does get worked through as those things come apparent. There's no more discussion on that. I'll put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Point 0 is land use planning. The Mayor advised in accordance with the provisions of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993 is to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 10 on this agenda, including any supplementary items. 10.1 is the minutes from the 12th of April 2022. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Nichols and Councillor Trenier, thank you. Any discussion on those minutes as was circulated? Thank you. I shall put the motion 7.1 to acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 11.1 under governance is the closure and acquisition of a 2,985 square metre portion of Stores Lane. Another move, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And Secretary Councillor Trenier, thank you. And invite discussions. I think the General Manager, comments on that at all?
Oh, just 3 minutes. We dealt with late last year in the sense of we had made an assumption that it was public land as part of the transfer between state growth and the owners, but the Crown Solicitor since discovered it's still probably privately owned from 1848. So there's a fairly laborious process we've got to go through to do this, and we have an easier statutory path to do it compared with the state trying to do it. So we're doing it as a good corporate citizen, and we will be reimbursed by the state for our costs associated with this, with acquisition costs and transfer. So unfortunately, the owners, it's still some time to deal with to get this thing through, but and I'm not sure what can happen in the interim, because obviously it has a bearing on their reconfiguration of their site area. So that's the quick summary of it.
We shouldn't have any problem with the original owner.
I don't want to know about it if you do have trouble with the original owner.
Do you foresee any?
The only issue through here is more the time, because we're potentially dealing with the public trustee, so it's just how long it's going to take to go through these processes, and then there's the normal acquisition process after that, and then potentially we're back to dispose of public land again. Because when we did it last time, it wasn't public land, it was privately owned, so it might actually, so it could be months away.
Right. But you need to go through that process.
Yes.
And, thank you, through you, Mayor. Just to clarify, that won't hold up, that's out of the way of the roadworks now. It's surplus to requirements.
Yes, it's more the inconvenience to the curb to own the property. You've now had a new access road cut through it.
Yeah.
And this was to offset that land they lost. And
This is their alternate transport loading and unloading area, effectively.
so it's whether they're in the interim while this fairly uninspiring process goes on, that they can use it. They may not be able to, which I don't know how that's going to affect them, but they're less than impressed, understandably.
There's nothing else on that. I shall put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. 12.1 is the Clintop Road proposed speed reduction. Mover, thank you. Councillor Trenier, seconding Councillor Reid, thank you. Open up the floor for any discussion regarding this.
I did send an email through earlier this afternoon saying I was going to ask this to be discussed at a workshop prior to this being on the agenda. I travel that road quite a bit and found the speed. I mean, it's been constructed well, let me put it that way, but the speed has increased dramatically. Every time I go on, I do probably be between 80 and 90 safe speed, and I'm tailgated every single time. And, so I think it's probably a very wise move to bring it back to 80, on most of it anyway. If not all of it, I I would say, from the Tasman Highway right through.
That's the suggestion through Mayor, and I mean, we're hoping we could go together with Clarence for the police and put a fair bit of pressure on us to consider it early. And they've been talking to the Department of State Growth. And then obviously to start Department of State Growth saying, well, we want council's decision before we're prepared to consider.
Further clarification on that, so our proposal is the whole length of the road
Within our municipality.
within our municipality, and then it's up to Clarence.
Yep, and we said we'd provide Clarence with the agenda item and all the rest of it, for them as potentially to go and do the other side on the other side.
So to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Through Mayor, just, I guess in regards to that, DSG have seen this in the past. Do they have a position that they, not put forward, or that their preference is after obviously the, state police have also had questions around it?
I think they're keen to reconsider it, Councillor Jackson, is about all I can get out of them at this stage.
That's good. Through Mayor, the request to them back to 2009 wasn't as a result of a formal resolution of council, it was just an informal question from a staff member. So I wouldn't say that they did a detailed assessment. It was a bit of an initial response or reaction, but now, as Russell's pointed out, without a decision, council they are unable to consider it. So it's a necessary first step to make it reassess the matter.
But yeah, it doesn't need the Transport Commissioner's tick for it to occur.
Through me?
Yes.
No, but it just appears to be the obvious solution to that piece of road, but also puts it, it's in line with what we already have done for a number of years on Old Fawcett Road, for example.
Yeah, it's the only 100k bit of steel road we've got left in anyway.
Cambridge to Richmond as well, which I know some of the locals hope is a temporary thing, but a lot more probably not. So yeah, it's good to see that alignment.
Yes, there. I shall put the motion of 12.1 for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 13.1 is Pembroke Park Sports Complex and Stadium name. Another mover, thank you. Councillor Jackson. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much. And invite discussion from the floor.
Makes sense.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, makes.
Just with the stadium, we've got named the new developed stadium to Pembroke Park to Southeast Stadium. Should it be Southeast Sports Stadium or just keep sport out of the stadium?
Names to discuss, Jess, were they complications of sport or not having sport there? I guess we're there to play sport, so
Through the sports complex.
It's in the sports complex, it's pretty self-explanatory.
stadium is a stadium, can be used for many different things, including music and other functions as well, so just call it a stadium would be. Councillor Nichols is excited about having country and western music.
That'll be banned.
Any other questions, Councillor Reid?
I'd just like to note that on the history of it, I'd checked the last chronicle, and it was in 1836 that Governor Arthur declared the county of Pembroke. So it's at least got that name has at least got that legacy. And keep it simple, it does that. So
Yes,
it's a
it'll
good practical option.
probably take a generation to get rid of the Pembroke from it all, but when you think about it, the stadium, that whole complex has been developed around a centre for the southeast, and many of the users are coming from the entire southeast region, so it's quite appropriate. Any other? I shall put the motion that one to be accepted. All those in favour? Unanimously, thank you. Move on to 14.1, which is the financial reports for April 2022 year to date. Mover, thank you. Mr Nichols and Councillor Reid, thank you very much. And invite discussions from the floor or questions to the General Manager. Thanks to the finance team that that much information in there. We haven't got questions, so that's good.
The rates are on track, was about the same as last year.
Yes, changes in the staff there. The ball has been taken up pretty well, I'd say. It hasn't been dropped at all. Part of their business. If there's no comments, I shall put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Thank you. Pass unanimously. 14.2 is the 2022-23 fees and charges out of management food business. Mover, please. Councillor Trenier, second Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any questions regarding these fees? Right, so the inflationary addition on some of them and the rounding is what we've been working on.
Yeah,
And
through
made
us,
adjustments and management.
because our draft budgets aren't resolved yet for next year, we took a view with these, at least, at the index at 3.5. Yep. As far as the actual rates and waste charges, it's still a work in progress, but we thought the reason for these type of services at 3.5 is acceptable in the circumstances.
There being no other questions, I shall put the motion as it stands. All those in favour? Unanimously, thank you. That ends the formal part of the meeting, except for questions from the public. So, anybody like to ask a question? Oh, surprise, Sharon. I never thought that was right.
Can I just ask you a question, firstly? Did you tell me, I think before the council meeting at the airport, that Telstra had contacted you about upgrading the lines on the peninsula?
There was an email come out that they were looking at some extra sites, and there was some funding available for some extra sites. They didn't say where they were. There was various pockets, black spot pockets of the east coast, and I think some might have been down the channel and some down the peninsula that they were looking at putting in some extra translators. That's all we've heard. It was just a general email explaining that.
Just clear. I got an email from Senator Betts at present saying that he contacted Telstra and Telstra had got straight back to him, sort of, I think they frightened they might end up in Senate estimates about the state of the lines on the peninsula. It's pretty terrible. That's just information of the council.
I want to say the general manager, when he had his they would say straw hat on down at Tasman. It was a program that they've been doing quite regularly over a number of years of upgrading a few spots, but it has slowed down. Of late, I can't think too many being put in, but hopefully they will be putting some more in.
And thank you for answering my question on notice the thing. If I could just ask one more question in relation to that. The total that you've mentioned here, that would have to bring Councillor de Williams' leave period to over 50% of elected period. Would that be correct, or would I need to put you on notice for the exact figure in relation to that?
I'll have to work it out.
General Manager will check on that for you.
All right, if I could cancel a notice for that, then just to find out what the actual percentage is, please, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. There's no more questions at all from the gallery. Thank you much for your attendance. Appreciate it. We just have to move it to close for a few minutes. So thank you very much for coming along tonight.
Thank you.
Second and who's, so you've got to read that.